Dear Mrs. Nogart, dear the listeners, at first, Mrs. Nogart, it was an excellent laudatio, and you selected really good the quotations, because it is one thing to think about things and to write about things, and one thing to get it right in one or two short remarks, and you have selected really good ones. Thank you for that, and thank you for your word. First of all, I of course would like you, the Lars Hedegaard, and the Your Society for giving me this award, which I have gladly accepted. That's why I'm here. Until 2009, I did not concern myself very much with the freedom of speech. It was just not one of my subjects in my career as a civil servant, as the member of the board in the several public enterprises. Okay, is it better? So, in several the public enterprises, and later as the politician, I had always the reputation as being outspoken, but that concerned mostly the professional field, and it was therefore accepted, even a kind of a trademark. Everything changed within the interview which I gave in the September 2009 about the socio-economic problems in Berlin and about the roots. You quoted from that interview. This was your first quote. And with the book that I published in August 2010, Deutschland schafft sich ab. My main points were in the interview as well in the book that Germany as a nation is doomed by its demography. Its statistics, it's a little bit boring at first, but the long and stable low birth rate means that every generation is 35% smaller than the one before, which means we had in 1965 1.4 million births, and right now we have an annual number of births of 700,000, and it is a consolation to the Danish people. In this course of events, it will take the 150 years until Germany has the population size of Denmark. So your big neighbor doesn't exist anymore. It's a small neighbor. Then, but because you go the same way, you will then have around 500,000 or something like that. Of course, things always change. One cannot the lengthen trends into the far future. This is quite clear. But it has been going on for half a century. And not a single reason is in sight anywhere why it could change. This was the first point. The second point is, and this is still, the first point had nothing to do with immigration. And the second point has also nothing to do with immigration. The brightest people have the fewest children. This has many reasons, but it is a fact, and I'm afraid it's a fact also in Denmark. Yes. And for this reason, the intellectual the capacities and the educational achievements in Germany have been shrinking for some time, and they will shrink even faster than the population shrinks, because, as I said, the brightest parents get the fewest children. This is no danger for the far future. This process is in full swing already. We don't notice it yet, because the generation with the highest birth number, 1964, is now just 48, 49 years old. Third, that kind of immigration that we do have in Germany, mostly from the Islamic countries, in Africa and in the Middle East, does not solve the problems which are caused by the first two reasons. It aggravates these problems. Reasons for this are the Islamic, the cultural, the background, and the poor average educational achievement and performance of these groups. This is consistently in all countries in Europe far below the European average, as the PISA tests show. As the PISA tests show, this is true even in the second and in the third generation. Well, those conclusions are of course controversial, and I intended them to be controversial. In matters of society, that is also true. There is no such thing as one absolute truth. There are always many ways to look at things, and I'm the first to admit this. I had expected, and also to some degree hoped for, the controversial discussion, but nothing had prepared me for the public storm that broke loose upon the publication of my book. I was accused of advocating biological determinism, whatever that is. I was labeled a social Darwinist. I was labeled a racist, as a matter of course. I was labeled an enemy of the people and an enemy of social justice. I survived morally and politically because of the enthusiastic support from large parts of the general public. The new media were very helpful in that regard, because the printed media and the television was prepared to write me down, to not to say the least, but they had in this case they lost their monopoly of interpretation, and this was plain for everybody to see. Realizing this, many politicians started a tactical withdrawal from the debate and from their prior condemnation of my thesis. In the course of events, however, I stepped down as a board member of the Deutsche Bundesbank, but not before I had been formally cleared of all allegations of the misconduct in the following months. I thought a lot about the controversial reactions to my book. I was something at a loss, because I still had the illusion that the discussion dealt with facts, with figures, with arguments. It took me some time to discover that this is not the case. And my theory is as follows. The code of conduct in a society is not laid down by law, of course. And this code of conduct varies over time. It is to a large degree an implicit code and not subject to the formal rules. And it is mostly not openly discussed. But those members of the society who do not observe this code run the risk of being excluded from the so-called good society, or from being nice people, as you say. Having and expressing the right set of opinions about certain the scientific, social and political questions is an important part of this conduct as far as the public life is concerned. Most people want to observe the prevailing order, the prevailing code of conduct, whatever that is, but being busy with jobs and with the families, most people have no informed opinion about most matters of public interest. So they think and believe what the media say they should think and believe. Politicians, on the other hand, form their understanding of public opinion not by asking the people. They form their understanding by consuming the media. Most of them sincerely believe, and I know it because I was part of this system, that what the voters think is that what the media write or say. Media are made by people. And media people, they recruit themselves in a process of the self-selection, much as the lawyers do, as doctors do, or as engineers do. Now, the lawyers are mostly the conservative, engineers are rarely the homosexual, and media people are mostly on the left side of the society. This is a process of the self-selection. Polls show that media people mainly listen to other media people. And also the personal experience. Endorsed by this, the self-selection, media people on the whole have a set of opinions that tends to be on the left side of the mainstream society. And I think this is anywhere where we have the democracy, and it is not a bad thing in itself. Better only the consequences of that. So I don't say it is a bad thing, but I think that this partly explains the mindset on the so-called the political correctness. Most people shy away from saying or even thinking anything that is perceived to be politically incorrect. So the mechanics of political correctness that prevents the expression of dissenting opinions, notwithstanding the formal freedom of speech. It even stops the generation of incorrect thoughts, because most people feel the necessity to be at ease, at an inner ease with the mainstream of society. The prevailing themes of political correctness, of course, change over time, but at any given time they are deeply ingrained in the, to some degree, unconscious mindset of the political class and of the media. Reflecting on the reaction to my book, I identified 13 themes which constitute the main body of political correctness in Germany, but maybe it's the list is all so fitting for Denmark. You might decide on yourself. My book violated the single of this list of the political correctness, which I discovered only afterwards. Here is the list of political correctness in Germany. I think the list describes the truth, but it takes some humor or irony to understand it fully. And it is one sign of political correctness that it is completely void of humor or of irony. The problem lies not in any single item of the list, but it lies in the combination and in their the rigid application to political thinking. And here comes the list. First, inequality is bad. Equality is good. Second, secondary virtues like industriousness, the precision or the punctuality are of no particular value. Competition is morally questionable, except in sports, because it promotes inequality, the point one on the list. Third, the rich should feel guilty. Exception, rich people who have earned their money as athletes or as pop stars may enjoy their wealth. Fourth, different conditions of life have nothing to do with people's choices, but only with the circumstances they are in. Fifth, all cultures are of equal rank and value, especially the values and the way of life of the Christian Occident and of the Western industrialized nations should not enjoy any preference. Those who think differently are, of course, the provincial and xenophobic. Sixth, Islam is a religion of peace. Those who see any problems with immigration from Islamic countries are guilty of Islamophobia. This is nearly as bad as anti-Semitism. Seventh, Western industrialized nations carry the main responsibility for poverty and the backwardness in other parts of the world. Eighth, men and women have no the natural differences except for the physical signs of their sex. Ninth, the human abilities depend mainly on training and education. The differences which are inherited play hardly any role. Tenth, there is no difference between peoples and races except for their physical appearance. 11th, the nation state is an outdated model. National identities and peculiarities have no particular value. The national element is as such is rather bad. It is at any rate not worth preserving. The future belongs to the world society. 12th, all people in the world do not have only equal rights. They are in fact equal. They should at least all be eligible for the benefits of the German welfare state. 11th, children are an entirely private affair. Immigration takes care of the labor market and of any other demographic problem. So far this list. In this condensed form it may sound like a joke, but it is not a joke. If you read the papers, you see it's obviously in nearly everybody's head who is writing there. These are the hidden axioms of the prevailing political mindset in Germany, as well as in many other industrialized countries as I see them. Every item on this list has a high emotional value for those who believe in it. The core of the problem is partly moral and partly ideological attitudes are taken at face value and are mixed up with reality. It is a permanent task, I'm afraid, to sort that out. It makes me faintly optimistic, though, that after all that the turmoil, I am still morally alive and not as a person and author ignominiously buried and forgotten. that had certainly been the intention of the vast majority of the political and of the media class, but for once the general public disagreed. This in itself is of course a matter of dissatisfaction, not only for me, but for many people in Germany. Quite interesting was the experience with the second book, Nach der Europa braucht den Euro nicht, which was published in May 2012. In this case, nobody could deny that I am an expert on the matters I wrote about. So they doubted again my motives and tried to discover right-wing or the populist elements in the book. That proved impossible. The historical reasoning was sound, the economic reasoning that I applied was the mainstream and adhered to strict logic. My warnings and misgivings were proven true, and they are this time and again nearly daily by the actual events. So they tried to touch the book. Touch is a word which I the first heard in the United Kingdom. It's an abbreviation of the German word Totschweigen. Totschweigen, I think you understand that much German. Be silent about. Means touch in English, to touch something. I often found that my arguments in print, while the source was not mentioned. The argument was good enough, but the person was touched. But even this was only partly successful. The second book sold 200,000 copies and took the 9th place on the bestseller, the non-fiction list in Germany. So when I speak, that the 8th would have been better. When I speak of they, I don't mean the media as a whole, but about the 70% of them. The problem is not that they disagree. I love disagreement. It is the salt of every enlightening discussion, and I would be totally bored if I had not to struggle with the disagreement and opposing views. But they avoid the exchange of arguments. They don't even read or listen carefully, if at all. They try to get to you on a personal level by doubting your motives, by mocking your habits, your looks, your attitude to life. The ultimate aim of they is defamation. They try to instill the fear of isolation in all those who might support you and speak out for you and for your arguments. And one has to admit it works, at least partly, because as I said at the beginning, most people hate to expose themselves in the controversial matters, even the honest and the good-hearted ones. So those who go with the flow get easily the upper hand and dominate the climate of public opinion. This is nothing new. I think it has always been this way. It is obviously part of the human nature to try not to fall out with the moods, with the habits, and with the opinions of those social groups, formal or informal, of which they feel they are part. But it is important that those who disagree are given space, in a literal sense and in a moral sense, to develop and present their views free of sanctions of any kind. each and every the progress in the social affairs, in science, in culture, even in fashion, starts with the disagreement of the minority. This is the way change goes on. So the letters encourage the expression of all kinds of disagreements with two exceptions. And these are the exceptions. It's the right, first, to express your views, and second, to be the master, your own master of your course in life. Those two rights should never be challenged, not at least in a free society. Thank you very much.